Welcome to New York 4 to 7, presented by Verizon. I'm your host, Chelsea Sherrod, and today we are joined by MLB reporter Brian Hoch. Let's see how many topics we'll cover today. 4 topics for the 4 train. Our first topic, Brian, the Yankees have only won 4 of their last 13 games. They did beat the Reds 7-1 last night, featuring another dominant performance by Max Fried. Are you concerned about the Yankees' performance over this recent stretch?
I'm really not, and here's why. Because we've seen this song and dance before, this June swoon. I mean, look back at last year. They came out red hot. They had an awesome May, and then they kind of hit the skids in June. And I think they finished a game over 500. And look, that team went to the World Series and finished with 94 wins. So, Aaron Boone has preached confidence that even as bad as it's looked here over this stretch, over the long haul, they're going to prove to be a really good team. And I think past history shows that they can survive a rough month like this one. So I'm going to base it on what we saw last year and the year before that, where June has just not been kind to the Yankees.
Okay, so what do you think it is though, Brian? Were the Yankees' weaknesses getting exposed, or do you think that they just went cold in June?
I think it's a little bit of both. The last month or so, we've seen some of the tightened up logistics there, the mechanics on the base pass, the outfield play. I mean, they were really buttoned up the first couple months of the year, and you've seen cracks in that. And even just last night, Ben Rice tagged up twice on a sacrifice fly. Didn't hurt them, but it didn't look good either. I go back to that series in Boston where Anthony Volpe was on the bases, Jason Dominguez forgetting how many outs there were, forgetting the count, and then being tagged out there as Trent Grisham swung through strike two. So things like that, especially when you're struggling to score runs, you can't give outs away like that.
Definitely. No more self-inflicted wounds. To our second topic, Brian, as mentioned, the offense has been quiet lately. Surprisingly, Paul Goldschmidt is hitting just 147 in June. He sat in last night's game against Cincinnati. What does he need to do to get back in rhythm at the plate?
Yeah, I think with Goldschmidt, the swing and miss has crept back in a little bit. And that was what really bothered him in the first half last year with St. Louis. And he had corrected that in the second half. And that's part of why the Yankees went and got him. And that was the Goldschmidt they got for the first 2 months of the season. And he was great. So I don't think it's a huge difference. It's probably something that James Rowson and the hitting group can work on to kind of bring him back. He still mashes against left-handed pitching. He's lethal against them. So I don't think there's a long way for him to go to get back to what he was in April and May. And similar to what we just saw with Aaron Judge, you can get out of sync for a week or two and then lock right back in.
Yeah, these are the ebbs and flows of a very long season. Speaking of ebbs and flows, Anthony Volpe has just 4 hits in his last 11 games. Do you still trust him as the Yankees' everyday shortstop?
I do. And here's why. Because I think that even though it has been a rough stretch on both sides of the ball, there's no doubt about that. I think a lot of the noise around him is overblown. If we zoom out a little bit, he's actually having a pretty decent offensive season, better than last year, believe it or not. He's about a league average shortstop. I'd like to see him walk more so he can use his speed. But, if we extrapolate what he's already done over the course of 162, and remember, he's a guy who plays almost every single day. You're looking at a guy with 40 doubles, 18 or so homers. He's going to have 80 or so RBIs. So his errors are a little ahead of where I would have put them. But you can win with Anthony Volpe at shortstop. The Yankees proved it last year. They went to the World Series with him. He's not going to be Derek Jeter. He doesn't have to be Derek Jeter. He doesn't have to be Bobby Witt Jr. He just needs to be the best version of Anthony Volpe, and that's good enough for the Yankees. I really do believe that.
Yeah, that's good perspective looking at the bigger picture rather than a smaller sample size. Brian, Oswald Peraza is batting just 162 on the season. Do you see his role as a platoon infielder continuing moving forward?
Yeah, for now I do, but I think that that's one area where the Yankees may look to upgrade as the deadline gets closer. And that's something that's more attainable than saying go out and get an ace starting pitcher or go get a middle of the order slugger. I think that when you can make those kind of moves on the margins, that's what Brian Cashman looks to do as the deadline approaches. So can they find a utility infielder who's an upgrade over Peraza? Possibly, but I do think there's more in there than Peraza has shown. Remember, this guy was a very touted prospect, and we've seen glimpses of it, but I feel like until he gets extended playing time, maybe that's not going to crack through. And maybe he's one of those guys that you just have to play 5, 6, 7 days a week for it to really shine to the top. it's hard being a guy who only comes in once or twice a week, coming cold off the bench and do that. There's a reason that there's only a few guys around the majors who really do that very well, and they're pretty valuable.
Yeah, that is very hard. You mentioned Ben Rice. What do you think his role should be as Giancarlo Stanton has returned to the lineup and he's played well since his return?
I mean, keep him in the lineup as much as you can. He has crushed the ball all year. You go look at Ben Rice's baseball savant page, and it is just bathed in red. And that's a good thing because it means he's crushing the ball. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He hasn't been rewarded for it a lot. He's actually hit into some tough luck as he did last year. So I think that over the long haul, that's going to balance out even more. This guy's a legit major league hitter. I love his left-handed stroke. So put him in a catcher at first base, DH, wherever you can do that against some right-handed pitching. And look, it is a balancing act for Aaron Boone, but we all know Giancarlo Stanton's not going to play 7 days a week. So there are going to be opportunities there. And Boone's, that's why they pay him the big bucks to figure out how to plug in a guy like Ben Rice, who really can change a game.
Yeah, I want to follow up quickly on that. Speaking of the balancing act that Aaron Boone has to do, should he be doing more to mix up the lineup while the team is struggling?
I think Yankee fans would argue they'd like to see the lineup be more constant. The problem is with a guy like Stanton back, you can't play everyone. Jason Dominguez had a 4-hit game in Cincinnati last night. Trent Grisham had a 4-hit game in Cincinnati. I can't guarantee they're both going to be in the lineup on Friday against the A's. I really can't, and we don't know that for sure. And so I'd say in a perfect world, you would be trotting out a constant 1 through 9. You could really just lock in and have the same guys every single day, but that's not the way it is with this roster construction. You really can't do it. And he's got to mix and match. I didn't even mention Cody Bellinger, who certainly deserves playing time, but as of now, you're seeing it getting eaten into a little bit because there's just too many guys for not enough spots.
Yeah, I mean, that's what managers are there for, right? Constantly adjusting. Very hard job. To our next topic. Brian, do you expect the Yankees to make a big move at the trade deadline? What are some moves that we should keep an eye out for now that we're inching closer to it?
Yeah, I think the Yankees are going to be active. Certainly, they always try to be every trade deadline. Brian Cashman's already on record as saying pitching, 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 whether it's starting pitching or relief pitching. And I just wonder how many elite difference makers are going to be out there because with the expanded playoffs, everybody's kind of in it. The number of teams that are raising the white flag in July and saying, all right, that's enough. We're out of here. We're sellers. They're not as much as they used to be. So pitching for sure, but I would love to see them add another infield bat, preferably one who can play second base or third base. I think that's a big need for this club. And so some of the names we've heard already floated are out there. Ryan McMahon of the Rockies and Eugenio Suarez of Arizona, even Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I think he would fit in a lot of ways too. There are salary concerns with all three of those guys, so they would have to move some things around to make the numbers fit if they really do intend to stay under that cap there. But that's kind of the gist of the guys that you're going to be looking for the Yankees to go after here at the deadline.
Yeah, lots to consider and lots of decisions to be made before that deadline. To our fourth and final topic, the gap in the AL East has gotten closer, during the stretch from the Yankees. The Rays are now just 1 game back of the Yankees. The Blue Jays are 3.5, and the Red Sox are 7 back after losing 5 straight. So, Brian, who is the biggest threat to the Yankees in the division?
It's got to be the Tampa Bay Rays. They've got a little magic going here. They're the little engine that could. They always are, but now they're playing down at Steinbrenner Field. They certainly got a chip on their shoulder. Everybody has counted them out, and they just keep winning. So I think that give credit to the Rays because they do less with more every single year. And there's no greater example of it than this year where Tropicana Field is damaged. They have to go move into the Yankees spring training complex and they just keep winning. And then so the world is against them. And, in the grand scheme of things, I still think the Yankees are the favorites in the division, but the Rays have made it clear that they're banging on the door and they're not going to let the Yankees run away with this thing. And so I think it's fun. It's good for baseball. It's good for the division. When the teams in the American League East are competitive, which they usually are, it makes it a fun summer.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you, Brian, about the Red Sox, who are now 7 games back. Will they be sellers at the deadline after struggling since losing Rafael Devers? What do you think?
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. I think that, the vibes up there, even when they were beating up the Yankees all weekend at Fenway, that was kind of, you said, this is a ray of sunshine in a season that isn't really going anywhere. And so I think with the Devers trade, there were other circumstances there. And I think that was something that needed to happen sooner rather than later. Certainly a shock. I mean, he had a home run against the Yankees and then he was gone about 2 hours later. So I think that that is certainly somewhere, and we've seen the Red Sox do this before, where they rebuild and they retool on the fly. They have a bad season and they're able to bounce back. So they've had experience with this, and I think that that is certainly one team that we're talking about teams that are falling out of the race. That's one team that I think by July might be looking at themselves and saying, all right, we're not going to catch the Yankees. We're not going to catch the Rays. This is a rebuilding year, and let's retool for next season.
Yeah, and you just mentioned this, but I just want to confirm again, as the All-Star break quickly approaches, do you view the Yankees as the favorites to win the AL East?
I do. I think that there's too much talent on this roster, and I think that they're going to put it together. I know June has been a rough watch in a lot of ways, but even that being said, they come off this Cincinnati series and they're a game below 500 for the month. So as bad as it's been, it hasn't been awful. I mean, they've had some awful stretches for sure where it's looked pretty ugly, but I think when you zoom out and take a look at this entire season as a whole and where they're going to go after this, after the break, I think this is a very good team. I still think they're the favorites in the division. They're a playoff team. And, I'm not making any October plans, put it that way. No vacations are being booked on my end. I think I'm going to be pretty busy.
All right. You heard it here first from Brian Hoch. Thank you all so much for watching New York 4 to 7 presented by Verizon. For Brian Hoch, I'm Chelsea Sherrod. We will see you soon.